Between 1942 and 1945, American households grew more than 40% of their own vegetables. Not in big farms, in backyards, front yards, anywhere there was dirt and sunlight. These were not hobby gardens, they were survival systems. World War II redirected food supplies to the military. Grocery stores rationed what little they had. So regular families, factory workers, teachers, clerks, mothers with no farming experience started planting. Potatoes in the front lawn, beans along the fence, tomatoes wherever they fit. Not because it was trendy, because it kept them fed. Today, we are not at war, but the same instability is back. Food prices have doubled in 5 years. One storm shuts down supply routes. One strike empties shelves. And you are spending $9,000 a year on groceries while watching prices climb and availability drop without warning. That $9,000 could be $400 in seeds and materials. The difference is not space, it is a system. A 100 square foot garden, managed correctly, can feed a family of 4 for 9 months of the year. Here's how to build it. Principle 1. Soil quality determines everything. Most people get this backwards. They focus on seeds, sunlight, and watering schedules, and they completely ignore the soil. The soil is everything. Healthy soil is not dirt. It is a living ecosystem. Millions of organisms per cubic inch. Fungi, bacteria, earthworms, and microbes all working together to break down organic matter and convert it into forms that plant roots can actually use. If your soil is dead, nothing else matters. You can water perfectly and plant on schedule and still get weak, disappointing harvests because the foundation is not there. Here's the fastest way to build fertility. Compost. Take your kitchen scraps, yard waste, dry leaves, grass clippings, and pile them up. Let them decompose. In 90 to 180 days, you will have dark, crumbly humus that transforms even terrible soil into productive ground. A working compost pile needs 4 things: brown materials like dried leaves or shredded paper for carbon, green materials like vegetable scraps or fresh grass for nitrogen, moisture about as damp as a wrung-out sponge, and airflow, which keeps it from going anaerobic and smelling like death. Turn the pile every 2 weeks. Check moisture weekly. When it smells earthy instead of rotten and crumbles in your hand, spread it 3 to 5 inches deep across your planting area. Even clay or sand will transform under this treatment within 1 season. If you keep chickens or rabbits, their manure is valuable, but compost it first for at least 60 days. Fresh manure burns roots. Fertility is not optional. It is the foundation everything else is built on. Principle 2. Layout efficiency doubles your usable space. A victory garden is not about looks, it's about output. Every square foot should produce food, not sit there looking decorative. Traditional row planting wastes more than half your space on walkways. You walk between rows, compact the soil, and lose productive area to paths you barely use. Here's a better system. Raised planters. Build frames 4 feet wide, as long as your space allows. Fill them with soil mixed with compost. The 4-foot width is critical because you can reach the center from either side without stepping inside. And once it's built and filled, you never step on the growing surface again. Compacted soil restricts root growth and blocks water from soaking in. Loose soil lets roots penetrate deep and water move freely. The difference in yield is massive. Now here's where it gets interesting. You can plant way denser than you think. Instead of straight rows, arrange plants in hexagonal pattern. Picture honeycomb cells. Each plant sits in the center, surrounded by 6 neighbors. This configuration increases plant density by 150 to 200% compared to traditional spacing. As plants mature, their leaves overlap and form a continuous canopy. This shades the soil, stops weeds from germinating, and slows water evaporation. The system regulates itself. Standard gardens waste 40 to 50% of their area on paths. Raised planters reduce that to under 10%. That is the difference between a garden that struggles and one that produces abundantly. Before you build anything, map your site. Where does sunlight hit for 6 or more hours? Where do structures create shade? Where is your water source? Tomatoes and peppers need full sun. Lettuce and spinach tolerate partial shade. Plan placement based on light, not aesthetics. And think vertical. Trellises, stakes, cages. Beans, cucumbers, and certain tomato varieties climb. A 2-foot by 2-foot footprint with a 6-foot trellis produces as much as 12 square feet of horizontal space. Structure determines capacity before you plant a single seed. Principle 3. Grow crops that produce the most food and store the longest. Not all crops are equal. Some give you huge yields from tiny spaces and store for months. Others take up half your garden and rot in a week. Potatoes are the foundation. 1 square foot can yield 8 to 12 pounds if you grow them in deep mulch or layered soil. Store them in a cool, dark place and they stay edible for 6 to 9 months. No other crop delivers that combination of space efficiency, calories, and shelf life. Beans, both bush and pole types, give you protein and improve your soil at the same time. They pull nitrogen from the air through bacterial nodules on their roots, which means they fertilize themselves while producing food. Pole beans climb vertically and produce for 60 to 90 days from less than 1 square foot per plant. Indeterminate tomatoes keep setting fruit until frost kills them. With proper support and consistent water, one vine produces 25 to 35 pounds across a season. Can them or preserve them and you have year-round nutrition from summer production. Winter squash like butternut and acorn take up space, yes, but they justify it. A mature plant produces 15 to 25 pounds of dense, calorie-rich flesh that stores without refrigeration for 4 to 6 months. Leafy greens like kale, chard, and collards grow fast and tolerate repeated harvests. Remove outer leaves weekly and the plant keeps producing from the center for months. This gives you more food per square foot than any single harvest crop. Root crops like carrots, beets, and turnips use underground space efficiently. Plant them in succession every 2 weeks from early spring through late summer. Instead of one overwhelming harvest, you get a steady supply. Perennial crops like asparagus and rhubarb take patience. The first 2 years, they give you nothing. After that, they produce reliably for 15 to 25 years with almost no maintenance. That is the ultimate long-term investment. Seed companies restock once a year. Popular varieties sell out by mid-spring. Decisions you make in February determine what you harvest in August. Decisions delayed until April determine whether you harvest anything at all. Principle 4. Succession scheduling prevents gaps in production. Most gardeners plant everything in April and May, harvest in July, and then watch their gardens sit empty for the next 10 months. That is not a system. That is a one-time event. A victory garden produces continuously, not in bursts. The way you do that is succession planting. Succession planting means sowing small amounts of fast-maturing crops every 2 to 3 weeks instead of planting your entire supply at once. Radishes, lettuce, spinach, and turnips mature in 25 to 50 days, depending on the variety. If you plant every 2 weeks from March through September, you get 10 to 12 separate harvests from the same physical space. Here's how it works. You plant lettuce on March 15th. It matures by May 1st. You harvest it, but 2 weeks earlier, on April 1st, you planted another round. That one matures by May 15th, and you already planted another on April 15th. This creates a continuous pipeline. As one crop finishes, the next is already growing and ready in weeks. Relay cropping. Layers plantings, so the harvest from one crop overlaps with the establishment of the next. Plant lettuce between rows of peas in mid-spring. When the peas finish in early summer and you remove them, the lettuce is already rooted and ready to take over that space. Intercropping pairs fast crops with slow crops. Plant radishes between cabbage transplants. The radishes mature in 30 days, well before the cabbage expands to fill the area. Same square footage, 2 crops instead of 1. Season extension tools like low tunnels, cold frames, and fabric row covers trap heat and block frost. This lets you plant 4 to 6 weeks earlier in spring and keep harvesting 4 to 6 weeks later in fall. In moderate climates, that stretches the season from 4 months to 8 or 9. Write it down. Create a calendar. Mark seeding dates, transplant dates, and harvest windows. Include reminders for succession sowings. When the schedule is visible, you execute mechanically. When it lives in your head, you miss windows. A garden that produces once per year is a hobby. A garden that produces continuously is infrastructure. Principle 5. Close resource loops to eliminate external dependency. A resilient garden does not depend on constant external inputs. It cycles resources internally. Waste becomes fertility. Rainwater becomes irrigation. The system feeds itself. Every organic material leaving your household should return to the soil. Vegetable scraps, coffee grounds, eggshells, pulled weeds, grass clippings, fallen leaves. All of it becomes compost. Compost feeds soil. Soil feeds plants. Plants feed your family. Waste returns to production. The loop closes. Rainwater is free and reliable if you capture it. A 1,000 square foot roof collects roughly 600 gallons from a single inch of rainfall. A basic barrel system stores that water for dry weeks. For a 100 square foot garden, that's enough for 2 to 3 weeks of irrigation. Mulch completes the loop. Spread 3 to 4 inches between plants. It blocks evaporation, moderates soil temperature, suppresses weeds, and slowly decomposes into organic matter. Water demand drops by 40 to 60% under mulch. Position planters near water sources. If you have to carry water 50 feet twice a day, compliance drops. If a hose reaches every planter from one connection point, watering becomes effortless. Systems designed for low maintenance get maintained. Systems that require constant effort get abandoned. The goal is not to work harder. The goal is to build a structure that works with minimal intervention once established. The original victory gardens existed because families refused to depend on supply systems they could not control. Food availability was uncertain. Prices were unstable. Growing your own was not a hobby. It was how you stayed fed. We are not in the same crisis today, but the logic is identical. Food costs keep rising. Supply chains break during storms, strikes, and shortages you cannot predict. Self-sufficiency is not about paranoia. It's about reducing vulnerability. A victory garden is not romanticizing the past. It's applying proven methods to present conditions. Build fertile soil, design for efficiency, grow high-output crops that store well, schedule for continuous production, close resource loops. Most people wait for perfect conditions before they start. Productive growers build systems while conditions are still favorable. The difference is not talent, it's timing. The best moment to establish food security is before it becomes urgent, not during a crisis, before one, when you still have time to make mistakes, learn from them, and refine a system that will function reliably for years to come. Are you building a victory garden this year, or still just doing a hobby garden? Comment which one and what vegetable you'd like to try and grow but never have.